For all of you out there listening, if you are in the market for any kind of software development needs, check out Studio NoCode. It's our agency that's built on Bubble experts with nearly a decade of experience building all kinds of Bubble apps: marketplace, social network, payroll company, catering business, data room, ad tech, legal tech. We got a little bit of everything. We've seen it all, and that helps us translate all of our knowledge into your app to build the best product for your customers. We built it professionally, we built it to be secure, and we built it to scale. And we're going to do all these things on time and on budget. So if you are looking for help getting off the ground, getting something to market, or anything in between, give us a call or an email or a carrier pigeon or whatever you want. Studio-nocode.com. We'll probably be there.
Incredible.
Say that one more time for everyone in the back who's trying to build another marketplace that they're surprised at how easy it's supposed to be. You nailed it.
Welcome to This Week in NoCode. I'm your host, JJ Engler, here with my co-host, David Powell. Here with another fantastic week for you for This Week in NoCode. In a little bit of AI, we got some great news for you, some actually crazy news, and then we're bringing on the guest, or the creator, of the 100 Days School, Max Haining, to learn about his story as getting into NoCode, how he came to build the 100 Days of NoCode and AI programs, the amount of people that have graduated from that, and some special things that he's going to be doing in the future for that program. So be sure to stick with us to the end. But until then, David, why don't you get us started with the news of the week?
All right. Well, hello, everyone from the Black Shirt team. The two of us. Black shirts for the win. This week, we're going to start with some Zapier, Zap news.
Zapier.
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 We will agree to disagree. Zapier, they have announced a pricing change. Another pricing change in addition to the changes they made earlier this year, and finally a pricing change without objection.
Yep. And why is that? Because they took the professional plan and merged it in with the lower plan to make it for the same low cost of $29.99.
Exactly. So everyone is upgraded for free from starter to pro, which is fantastic.
But why? Why are they? Is it just, hey, I'm feeling good today, all of you guys get the professional plan? There has to be a strategy behind this. We talked about it a little bit. What are your thoughts going into it?
So I think the reason why they're doing this is because there are more opportunities to integrate all of these tools into the AI landscape that they're building. And I think between AI, other automation platforms like Bardeen, which we talked about once before, making it easier to integrate because now AI can read documentation, and the world of no code, I think Zapier is like, hey, we want you to feel all of the power of what we can do and not get limited. So you're adding another subscription that, well, I might as well just build the exact thing I need in Bubble or Make or Glide or software, whatever you need. They're like, hey, we want you all, everyone here in Zapier, we want to see what people actually will build. And if I were to guess what their membership stack looks like, they have a huge amount of really low paying and free customers that kind of get stuck using the platform. They can't really see the power because they can't use everything. Like some of the features are only premium. You can't build too many zaps at once, like all of these things. And the pay per task means I don't want to pay $20 a month if I need it 10 times right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so a bit more utility instead of just subscription.
I got a bit of a different take.
Okay.
So
Hit me.
my take is that Zaps and their Zaps, it's always going to be the core product, but it's almost turning into a loss leader. And it's not like a true loss leader, but in the sense that they just launched interfaces, they just launched
Hmm.
tables, and they want to spur growth for both of those products and their chatbots. And so let's give everyone hella Zaps, make it super free and easy to start building with all these other things, which each cost additional money. And when you do subscribe to those other things, all of a sudden your Zapier bill is like $80 to $100 a month now, right? And it's much less than that $20 to $30 you were paying kind of thing. And so it just becomes, how do I afford all of this? Well, I got to lower my package. And that also makes more people enticed to come in to do more with it. And then,
Yeah.
oh, we just launched all of these features. Oh, now try these features as well, kind of thing. So I think it's just a combination of they launched these new features. They want to encourage as many people to try them as possible. And by lowering their main prices, they could drive more people back into the
Into the
ecosystem, and
ecosystem.
then they could upsell them and have expansion revenue from there.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I wonder this pay per task model that they
Yeah.
have. Yeah, I guess like you can't upgrade from starter into these other tables, so they needed professional into the other like the table interface stuff as well. The margin on that is probably not that huge, right? Like moving from 20, moving the price down to 20, they probably don't lose much.
Yeah.
And the pay per task, I bet you they're going to make a heck of a lot more money on the pay per task on these overages than just keeping everyone in free and not upgrading. So I
Yeah.
think they'll net out. I'm sure they tested this and they've modeled this out. They're definitely going to make more money
Yeah.
doing this.
Generally, I love the company. I really do.
Yeah.
It's a great product. They have so many ways to like add uh automations, efficiencies into your life. It's easy. I'm just generally a fan of
Hmm.
Zapier.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah. They've been doing great things.
Let's move on to the next one. We talked about this 2 weeks ago with the founder leaving for Stability AI. And so there's a new article out saying that they reportedly ran out of cash to pay their AWS bill. David, how much was their AWS bill supposedly?
Yeah, they were on track to pay $99 million.
99, like not
A hundred
99,000, not
million bucks.
99, what?
Yeah.
$99 million
That's
dollars
each year, every year.
each year, and
Yeah.
they were only generating or on track to generate $11 million in revenue. They
Yeah.
were 10xing that with their AWS bill,
And
not
that was on top of $54 million in salaries.
employees, everything else. Holy
Yeah.
smokes. So,
Um,
I mean, they gave this industry a lot. They created all this new great technology, and they're essentially paying a cost for it. That
mhm.
cost was apparently $99 million to get there. And what is that saying about the landscape now of like these companies, they need so much computing power and it costs
Mhm.
so much money. And so how do they find a way to stay alive and or to compete with the big guys knowing the cost of compute?
Yeah, I mean, this has been pointed out a few different times with everyone, like basically every startup not named OpenAI. Cohere was having the same problem. Anthropic was having the same problem. They're all signing these big deals. I mean, Anthropic just got $4 billion from Amazon. But they need to side like OpenAI, like
They're just gonna give the money back to AWS with fees and cloud.
yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what a great way to give away, invest four
Right.
billion dollars,
Yeah.
right?
Gi
By getting it back.
Yeah,
Right? It's
give me
basically we'll
part
just
of
give
your
you 4 billion
company
in
and we'll
credits.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. But it it shows that like, these are expensive, these companies. OpenAI raised a lot of money from Microsoft, and I'm sure Microsoft is basically saying, don't worry, you'll never run out of money. So they pay serious salaries. Um, and then Google responded with increased salaries, right? They're just ratcheting up all these prices and the cost of compute. Like, sure, $54 million for probably 100 people is a ton of money.
Yeah.
$100 million on compute power is also a ton of money and is a problem because of shortages
Yeah.
and because that's just what the market price is.
Until compute gets much cheaper, I feel like that might be the bottleneck right now, is the lack of compute and the cost of compute to actually more advancements at a higher speed.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, and I think we were talking about this just before we hit record, you know, and Harrison was saying this, like, well, everyone's gobbling up as much compute as they can and trying to hold on to it themselves. Well, what happens when a bunch of these stability AIs go out of business and now have all this hardware?
The
Right,
housing
this
bubble.
is not now this hardware enters the market and the price goes down, and now you can rent them and use them for less, and now things start cratering. And what happens to Nvidia, where they have all this demand based on the forecast, but if the funding dries up, then all of a sudden no one needs to buy anymore. They start canceling orders and
And
the
we're not
price drops.
offering trading advice, folks. Don't
No.
take that as it. Do not go
Well, yeah,
short
but
your career on
yeah,
this.
do not do anything. Do not buy Nvidia
Yeah.
or sell or do anything. I don't
Just
know. I'm saying
don't do
nothing.
anything.
Not financial advice. Like, what happens to the price? Does it go down? Does it stay high? Like, who knows? Um,
Yeah. It's weird.
yeah,
There's a lot. This landscape is growing quickly. There's huge competition, huge costs, huge funding. Almost feels like a bubble in a sense, is just
yeah,
kind of waiting to be popped.
yeah. And on the other side, there are people like Facebook who are trying to push open source models so that you don't need the stabilities of the world, who are pulling in all this money, and it's like kind of working against the market. It's a very strange dynamic at the moment. But I mean, basically the CEO, which we reported a couple weeks ago, how he stepped down. We at the time were like, well, he said, people are leaving. He said it wasn't open source. You'd never be able to do this. But now it's kind of like, oh, he saw the writing on the wall. He wasn't able to raise the money they needed to keep running, so he left. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, easy.
Well, let's talk about something else. The last news story of the day. If you guys haven't noticed already, Siri on your phone, it has not been kept updated with the rest of AI technology.
Yeah.
It's not great. It has not been great for a while, and everyone's been wondering, when is it going to get better? Um, Apparently, Apple researchers say it is about to get a lot better because they claimed to have developed an on-device model called Realm that
It's
outperforms
Rome. Yeah.
GPT-4 in certain tasks. And thank the Lord, because I need it. A lot of people need it. They don't even realize how good it could be because how limited Siri currently is. And it will be a nice thing. I also spoke to some AI or some Apple employees and just about AI generally, and just saying that they've had a very, very cautious approach to this because of data and security and
Hmm.
privacy, and needing data to make stuff like this good, but not wanting to expose any user data in that way. And so they've had to go really slow and cautious with this. Hopefully they found the right approach where it is safe and secure, but also can give us results similar to that of the market with their Siri feature set.
Yeah, I think a whole bunch of startup founders' egos just sank when as this comes out. I think it will be very interesting to see how this actually gets implemented and in what way it then expands into, developers' hands, right? Apple has done a pretty good job of making tools like this and then making it available for customers to build off of, like Apple Vision Pro, right? They're not building all the content, they're just the device. Similarly here, I think there's going to be a lot of new companies that are going to be built using this AI. Like, think about Rewind. They have the device, the necklace device. They also have an app on your computer that just tracks everything you see and hear and read and watch and listen to, like, everything that comes out of your phone. Well, now it's kind of built in, right? Like, what's the point of using that product? It's half built in, right? So, I mean, they have, well, I'm not going to guess what happens to that company. But this is the kind of stuff you can now build, maybe kind of simply, right? Like, imagine just being able to build an app in Bubble that does exactly this, and you can now compete for $200 what a company worth 200 million can do. And so I don't know. I think a lot of people trying to put AI tools onto your phone are going to be in trouble. Like our friend Lewis, who's building a voice pen.
Yeah.
What happens there? Like this is tough.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. They've been slow to adopt this. It's
Mhm.
not out yet. We don't have any kind of launch date for that, but there are AI researchers from Apple claim to have done it, and so fingers crossed there. But before we get into our episode with Max to talk about the 100 days of no code and his AI programs, let's talk about our sponsor of the day real quickly with Design, the easy to
Design.
use Chrome extension that makes it so easy to copy and paste your designs from Figma into Bubble with one click. It is a
Mhm.
time saver time and time again. And if you're not just using it to have your own designs come in, they also have a library of designs that you can use of the most popular UI kits to make it super easy for you to get pixel perfect design in Bubble with like 3 or 4 clicks. So go and check them out. We have a link in our show notes that will give you a discount for getting started with them as well. To the folks at Design, thank you for taking the time to sponsor this episode. And now let's get on to our interview with Max Haining from the 100 Days School.
Mhm.
Here we are with Max Haining, the founder of the 100 School. Max, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. Yeah, really looking forward to diving into some exciting stuff.
Yeah, of course. So we know you buy 100 Days of No Code, 100 Days of AI. But before that, how did you get into the no code industry? Who are you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, who am I? Good one. I think so. The backstory really is that whilst I was at university, I tried to start um, a Airbnb for storage startup. I feel like a lot of people's first business is this kind of like marketplace of some form that's incredibly hard to build,
Mm.
that needs incredible
Say that.
scale to
Say that
actually.
one more time for everyone in the back who's trying to build another marketplace that they're surprised at how easy it's supposed to be. You nailed it.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I think
Um,
half of the companies we see through the agency or more are some kind of marketplace
We
for
tell them
sure.
don't
mm,
do it.
They're like,
yeah, yeah,
are
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
sure you have
yeah.
two products and customers? Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. So
No, no, it's
Airbnb for storage. Yeah.
totally. And this is something I'll jump back into the story, but this is something we also see on our boot camps. But I sometimes feel like, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, guys, around whether you just let someone feel the pain of their startup failing, or you kind of tell them in advance in some way. I never know which one to do, but anyway, I was not told or pre-warned how difficult a marketplace was to build. I went away and we spent probably 2 years whilst was at university. We won some awards, we raised some money, but we had no users and we had no product. Part of that was because all our founding team, including me, were non-technical. So that was a good sort of seed that was planted in my mind of, okay, gosh, if I'm going to do this again, one, I'm not going to be building a marketplace, and two, I need to be a little bit more technical. So I started kind of looking around. Okay, natural route is to learn to code. Thankfully, I came across a tweet from Ryan Hoover that was like, "Oh, the rise of no code. Thank goodness.
Mm.
This is just up my street. This is probably just at my level. I probably won't ever be able to code. So let's learn this new thing, no code." And lockdown struck. We all had a little bit of spare time in our hands, and I was just like, cool, right, I need to get these technical chops. Let's learn this for 100 days. I'm going to put on Twitter to like my 50-person follower audience and just say, hey, I'm going to jump in and learn this for 100 days. Does anyone want to do it? And a few people joined, and that's how I started.
So when you picked up no code, had you already kind of abandoned or shut down the marketplace?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was definitely a wreckage kind of by that stage.
Why 100 days? What made you just say, hey, I'm going to go do this for 100 days?
Yeah. In retrospect, 100 days is quite a long time. And I sometimes think, gosh, why did I take 100 days? 30 days surely would have been easier. But generally, so when I was looking at different pathways for me to become more technical. 100 days of code was the kind of one of the routes or the pathways. Um, and then when I found about no code, I kind of just connected the dots. I was just like, actually, why isn't there one for no code? This feels like it's going to be a movement of some form. It's going to rise in a trend. So let's do the no code version. And that was how it started.
And this wasn't when you started. This was so that you could learn, not so that you weren't like, hey, I'm going to start a business teaching other people to code. You're like, I have to become technical now. I want to start I suppose you wanted to start another company that maybe definitely not a marketplace, but something. And you're like, okay, well, someone on the team needs to code. And so you were going to be that person. And then so what did you see in those 100 days that the light bulb went off and you said, oh yeah, let me start a business around this?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, totally. The 100 days of no code was never intended to be a business. It still kind of makes me laugh a little bit that I've ended up being the complete non-tech guy teaching tech skills. It's just it's like full irony mode. But I think that's kind of why we're good, because I can always put myself in the shoes of what it's like to be a beginner, because I know exactly the thoughts, feelings, questions that keep coming up. And what kind of worked, I guess, for that 100 days of no code and that first version of it, which was me as the guinea pig going through it. What worked was I could feel those pains just as a beginner would, but I think what I saw was the lack of pathway for anyone starting in no code at that point. So this was probably early 2020, and there was only a few kind of, and JJ, I'm sure you'll be able to attest, like there wasn't many like real kind of, this is the path to go down if you're starting in no code. It was very scattergun at that point in time. So I think as I was going through the 100 days, the light bulb for me was, wow, okay, I've got all these questions, they're unanswered, and there aren't any really available pathways to take that people are doing. But also the other thing, and I think this was part COVID led, was the fact that just people really wanted to learn together or have some form of connection as they're learning. So that's where the connector, in my case, the hashtag, where people were sharing their everyday updates using the hashtag, that was kind of the seed for a community. And I realized, gosh, even if I can't teach people, I can bring them together. And that was kind of the first iteration of 100 Days, was a community, not an education platform.
Was there a certain tool that you learned that was just like, oh man, I think with this tool, I can actually do stuff now?
Yeah. So I went all in on Bubble as the go-to tool. And I think it had the biggest market share, and probably still does, or one of, in the no-code space. So that was the brand that kind of I entered the space with, like, oh, you learn Bubble, cool. I think that was my first hit. I built a positivity map in my local neighborhood of people doing like positive things or acts during COVID. And that was kind of the first thing, was that, oh, it literally had like 3 users, but like just the feeling of having someone go onto your app, share a positive story that they've seen, and it actually work and not break, was pretty cool. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, the not break part, definitely always nice. You know, when you get really the punch in the face when you hit production and you're like, oh, someone who doesn't know how it's supposed to work, and then it doesn't work for them the way they think. It's always great. So you picked up Bubble, which is a tough skill to learn. So 100 days is maybe not even enough. So you started there. Was that because that was just like the name? There was more community already around it, easier to learn. Yeah, like why not start with Airtable or Softer? I don't know if Softer was around yet in 2020.
I don't think.
Yeah.
No, it's funny enough, actually. I remember, so while I was going through the 100 days, I remember Mariam reaching out to me at the time that Softer was literally a landing page builder. So it didn't have any Airtable, it didn't have any of the good stuff that it has now. So yeah, Softer was barely sort of available really at that point. And to be honest, it was just a lack of understanding. I was probably two people in the space that kind of I kind of looked up to for like it was Siraf and KP. I think they're kind of people that were really early in the space. And I was just like, well, what tools should I learn? What tools are out there? And I just didn't really have that knowledge. So
Hmm.
it was less of a case of, I'm just going to learn Bubble, more a case of, I don't have a clue what's out there. So yeah, and lucky enough, I stumbled on more tools. Every day I kind of went through my 100 days and just tried to take as much in as I could.
When
And so,
going through that process, is there a certain like time per day or something that you recommend to students of like, hey, I'm gonna spend 30 minutes a day doing this? What's like that secret number that you found to be successful?
Yeah. So I remember when I was kind of when I literally started my 100 days, I was kind of thinking, okay, what's going to be the sweet spot here where I can keep this habit up, but give myself enough time where I'm actually learning? Because you say, like, if you think about it, so 30 minutes a day over 100 days, I think comes out to like 2 days of learning, or like two full days of learning, or something like that.
Mhm.
And so you want enough time, right? And the sweet spot I've found is 30 minutes um, every day. And that is good enough time to learn something tangible and build something tangible. But it isn't too long where you're thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't going to fit into my schedule. And I can actually build a habit around this, which is the key.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's it.
So what happened right after those 100 days were done for you, your first
Mm.
100 days? Now, a quick break for our sponsor of This Week in No Code.
If any of you guys are looking to learn more about Bubble, whether you're a beginner or a professional looking to get certifications and take your skills to the next level, you got to check out NoCode Alliance. It's been a personal project of mine for the last 2 to 3 years. I have 5 different courses there, all focusing on Bubble and taking you from zero to pro. And these courses tell you everything you need to know to start earning 6 figures as a Bubble developer. So go to nocodealliance.org, either get started with the beginner course or take our package and go from zero to pro in the next 3 to 6 months, and you won't regret it. That's nocodealliance.org. Back to the show.
Yeah. So the funny thing was, I almost had to do my 100 days again because my initial 100 days was essentially interrupted by me becoming more of a community builder rather than a like student, because I was essentially probably from day 30 onwards, I was essentially pulling people together, putting them in a Slack, putting on like live events every week, peer groups, all this kind of stuff for others that were doing the 100 days. I kind of like forgot to actually learn it myself. So which is the crazy thing. So I got to the end of the 100 days. I was like, damn, I haven't actually I mean, I'm okay, but
You're
like,
still not the technical
yeah.
founder you hoped for.
No, exactly. But I did have a very early potential thing that could be turned into a business. So that's what I did have, which I didn't have beforehand.
Which is what you were aiming for at the end of the 100 days. You wanted to get into that, and you stumbled into it. So, did you keep building? Are you still now more on the community side? Are you a Bubble
Mm.
Pro? What would you say now?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I've spent in the last 3 years since I've been in the space, I've spent way more time designing learning experiences, building community than I have in no code tools, which sounds a bit crazy because I'm evangelizing them, I'm pushing them, but actually I realized my kind of like my strengths, my skills. Sure, I can build a few things, but really my strengths and skills lie in connecting people and in helping them learn new skills. And if I can lean into that, and then let the experts, like JJ kind of teach these things in really, really great ways, then that's perfect. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a builder. I'm more of a, I don't know, educator. I'm really not sure what the word is.
You
Yeah.
said in the first 30 days, you started just forming that community. That's something that I did when I started learning is I quickly realized I needed help and I wanted to learn with
Mm.
other people. And I'm just a community person myself. And so I also started forming my community. And that's how
Mm.
my Slack group came to be. It started with just one person I was learning with, who ended up becoming a mentor for me in the bubble space. And then it just grew and grew. And so
Mm.
it's one of the best ways to learn, in my opinion, is having that community. I'm teaching a live cohort for Bubble right now, and they're taking an async class that I have, and then we do 1 day a week live.
Mm.
Or we're into week 5 now, and they're struggling hard. They've done 5 weeks of learning Bubble, 10 to 15 hours a week of learning, and they're still really struggling with it.
Mm.
Right. And like I had to give them like a pep like talk last
Right.
night. It's like, guys, listen, we're
Yeah.
going up the hill right now. Okay.
Yeah.
We can't see everything yet, but soon we're going to reach the top and we'll be able to see everything. And then we'll be able to go down from there. But this journey up, we got a couple more weeks there, maybe 2, 3, 4 more weeks together, but a real thing. I've been in your shoes. I know the pain,
Yeah.
you know, and these words don't make it easier, but just know that like, we'll get there together. And now teaching live again, I haven't taught live again in so long. You realize the importance of community. You realize the importance of having other people, cohort people that you're going through this experience. And I think that's one of the reasons why 100 Days of No Code and AI is so valuable, is because you do provide that co-learning experience.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what really resonated with what you just said there was you become almost, especially on those live boot camps, we've run them before, you become a motivational speaker, which is crazy, or like a personal mentor or coach. Beyond the actual technical support, it's the emotional like support of no, like, yeah, this is still hard, even though it's no code. And we lean into that a lot with because our logo is a mountain. So we always just lean into like, you're at this point on the mountain, you're climbing up it. You've got a long way to go yet. So people have a little bit of perspective on where they're going.
Yeah. It makes sense. And Bubble is it's a really hard thing to learn. It's essentially like a programming language in itself.
Right.
But what other tools do you teach? I know you teach a ton of tools, right? Is there a certain tool that like people learn this and they just love it? Or have you found any kind of secret sauces with this?
Yeah. So I guess just to give you, so firstly, we're somewhat, I mean, you can't be fully, but we're somewhat tool agnostic in the sense of, we design or try to design our learning programs from a problem or from some form of, let's say task that we want learners to be able to achieve. And then there are multiple solutions that they could take to solving that thing at the end. So, which opens up the possibility for different tools and different use cases and different scenarios to solve the same problem, but just in different ways. So for example, we may partner with, let's say, an organization that wants to, wants a little bit of help with how they can use AI to sell more products. We would work back from that problem and then teach learners like 5 or 6 different tools across the AI kind of tool belt that really specifically help companies sell more products with AI, but just in different ways. So, we go problem first and then work back. I don't know if that helps, but that's at a high level.
It makes sense. I think that's the right way to go. I think the more tools you know, the better these days. Back 5 years ago, Bubble was like one of the few, and it was like you just kind of threw that at the wall and used it for everything. But now there is a tool for mostly everything, and there is a tool for the job. But still, are there like common tools in your programs that you teach and that just your students seem to really get?
Yeah, yeah, you're totally right. Like you can certainly take a tool and you can totally over-engineer a solution because you've just got so much options. But what's nice about some tools is just they've got so much restraint that you're like, well, I can only build this one thing in this one tool. Great, that's a positive restraint. So for us, I would definitely say software has been a leading tool for our and I'm not just saying that, JJ, as you're here, but honestly, because it's a nice sweet spot between power and intuitiveness, and that's rare. So students seem to like that. They're not too scared of it. They feel like they can grow in it, but they can also build some cool stuff very quickly in it as well. Bubbles, of course, on that list. And what's interesting is Airtable seems to be probably one of the most popular tools that we teach as well, because it kind of sits in this back end. It's a back end for most projects that people build, regardless of front end.
Kind of like as a database, but kind of sexy, you know, and it's not as
Yeah.
intimidating, but it can do more than a database.
Yeah.
A
You
little
know,
automation
but
layer on
like,
top.
yeah,
Mm.
it's a great little entry point. I think a lot of like professionals that have even thought about getting the no code have maybe started with like an Airtable and they're like, okay, I know a little bit about Airtable now. Maybe
Mm.
I want to do something a little bit more. How do I do that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, two of our projects started as Airtable projects that then moved into full apps. They're like, okay, great. I don't want to be the manual interface between all these
Mm.
things. I'll just now put them into better UIs.
And
And
they're
that's,
also,
yeah.
it's really good to use as like a proof of concept of just like, hey, is there any kind of value here? I have, let's just put together an Airtable base in a simple interface, see if it works. I'll
Mm.
also have all this data. All right, now let's actually make something
Mhm.
bigger with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we know of things like Zoom Info and Clearbit that is like prospecting tools.
Mm.
There's like another course called 100K Database by this guy
Oh, cool.
Fraser, who the whole premise is you can make money just selling access to databases. Like you don't
Wow.
need the UI, you don't need
Yeah.
anything else, just the database. Like somehow, if you're aggregating unique data in a unique way and augmenting it, that's valuable to somebody,
Mm.
right? And so, I mean, Airtable is the product, right? You just copy the base and send it over, right? And
Mm.
so magically,
Yeah.
it's
Data,
enough
data, data.
at some level. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's really interesting.
So Max, you have done 100 days of no code for like 2 years now? A year?
Yeah. Getting there. So yeah, started in 2020. So getting to 4 years nearly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
How many people had gone through the program, either 100 days of no code or 100 days of AI?
Yeah. So we've had uh just over. I haven't updated it on the site, but we're just over 25,000 learners now, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Which which is kind of what we've been shooting for as well. We try and build educational experiences that are sort of scalable. Obviously, it comes with trade-offs. But what excites us is trying to lower the barrier as much as possible and bring as many people into what we do as possible. But yeah, it's been fun.
Who's the average? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe average doesn't exist, but
Mm.
like, who's taking the courses? Like, what kind of
Is it
person?
like already a no coder, or is it a person
Mm.
that know of no code yet?
Yeah, so we've and I'd be intrigued to see kind of what profiles you guys coming into you guys as well. We generally see three profiles, so either the creator, so that's the kind of the obvious one. That can be anything from a side project maker to a full blown venture backed startup founder, and then we have sort of busy working professionals. That I know that's incredibly general, but essentially
Mhm.
people that are like, well, it's on a kind of save a little bit of time, all this kind of stuff. See these tools, shall I apply them at work? Maybe yes. Let's give them a go. And then the last profile is, which is kind of a blend of different groups, is career switches. So we're seeing people
Mhm.
see no code or AI as kind of a pathway or a tool to transition careers in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, those are the three we're seeing. What about you guys?
I'm seeing the same thing on my side, at least for the programs I'm teaching, where
Mhm.
they either want to learn new skills to leverage it at their job, maybe to get a raise or to switch departments. They
Nice.
want to learn new skills to transfer careers, and in the hopes of a promising new career. Or the third one is they want to start their own startup or
Nice.
business.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah, when I was teaching boot camps, basically everyone was trying to start a business, and even through the
Mhm.
agency, it's somebody who's early stage building their own project. A couple people who have not really started much yet, that are just kind of throwing something at the wall to see if it sticks.
Mm.
I guess back to the question of early on the podcast, like, do we allow people to run
Mm.
marketplaces? Uh, I mean, I guess like I for every customer who's come or agency partner who's come and said, I want to build a marketplace, we warn them about how hard it is to build both sides. And my spiel, because my last company, I wasn't the marketplace, but we interacted with marketplaces a lot in programmatic advertising.
That's why you succeeded, because mine was the marketplace and I failed.
Yeah, we were like, no, we don't want to be both sides. We just want to be one. And there's always a patient side, whether it's the supply or the demand side is patient, and then one that's eager and impatient. And so if you can find the patient side reliably first, usually these are the people who would be happy to earn extra money. Like in a freelancer marketplace, this is the person who would earn an extra job but doesn't have to do much. And then the impatient side is like the person hiring. They're gonna show up at the marketplace. If it's not already full, they're gonna say, "Hey, there's no use for me on this," and they'll never come back. Right? It's easier to post a job and then hope to win versus actively kind of spending your time. And so I give their spiel. I tell them that, hey, this is doubly hard. If this is what you want, I mean, I'm happy to build it. Just be aware of the challenge. They're like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I know.
Choose bubble from marketplaces as well. It's kind of like itself that. So it's a tough one.
Do you guys find, because someone told me, I don't know if this is true, you'd be able to verify this better than anyone. I hear that if you're kind of becoming a no-code freelancer or developer, one of the biggest or most requested projects that are given to new freelancers or agencies is a marketplace type product. Is that correct?
I think so. I think from every survey we've seen,
and the leads that we've gotten at the studio, we built a lot of marketplaces.
Nice. If you think about it, it's like, I mean, you may have felt a very similar pain or opportunity. Is you see a lack of connection. Hey, you are connecting knowledge and people, right? Or people together who are trying to learn, right? Sure. And so they are both on the same mission, not really buying from each other, but they just want to be near each other. And in that world, like when you were just getting started, just putting people together, maybe building the content wasn't the first thing on your mind. It was, hey, let's get these people together. And so I think a lot of marketplace founders, they don't want to be responsible for being in a business that produces the thing that someone will buy, or being in a business that needs to consume the thing, right? Like think about Etsy. Well, they can't go make 16,000 or 16 million different products. They just want to help people who have products and want to buy products. And so they're like, as opposed to just starting an e-commerce store. But if you don't know how to, I don't know, make bracelets, whatever you're selling, then you just lean into the marketplace of, well, I don't have either side. And so it's common where you normally, it's interesting because usually to build a good marketplace, you need some insight on both sides. Like you have to have done this transaction a lot. But most people kind of sit on the outside, go, oh, I think this transaction, I can't do this transaction once. And maybe there's a reason, maybe you just don't know the marketplace. There's usually something missing in that.
The best the best ones too are the ones that need that recurring transaction. Like I need a driver every single week or every single day or whatever, like help that, rather than I need something one-off, because finding the one-off person is so hard to do. And it's not worth it from like an actual cost perspective, like a CAC. And so you need to find that person. It's like, if I find you and pay for you, I'm going to give you business every single week for the next whatever. And that kind of model is more sustainable. The marketplace that I was in was a filmmaker marketplace where we had either producers or companies looking to hire a film crew, right? And the producers and companies, they were very up and down with, well, sometimes they needed it, sometimes they didn't. If they did need it, they had regulars. They didn't need to find new people. And so the chances of actually finding new people that they'd go to a marketplace for were so rare that if I were to acquire a customer, it was hard to keep them there. And then it's, well, if that's not the value, then maybe you need to add software to be the value for them to use your services in a project management and a payroll kind of way to keep them sticky. But like, there were so many things that I learned and essentially burned and crashed along the way.
Yeah.
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 Sounds
Marketplaces. I don't know that I'll ever build a marketplace.
I'm still scared of it. I'm just, like for so long, people have asked me to integrate a marketplace in the No Code Alliance because we have over 1,500 no code devs. It would make really easy sense to just add the other side of it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't got time for that. I don't want it just to fail. Who's going to go and find these employers to like fulfill this side? I just, I don't know. I don't know how to do it successfully. So I'm scared of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enough
But
of
at
that.
least if you were to, you have one side already,
Yes.
right? As opposed to just
not
having nobody on either side.
Then, it's an easier step for me because I already have one side, but they're still going to require a lot of activity to find that other side and acquire them on a regular scalable basis.
Yeah.
And
And so, Max, do you see people building marketplaces as part of their projects? Is that common?
Yeah. So I think it's one of those where it's the classic kind of, okay, so to-do list app, or like social network, or like, oh, why don't we like create a way for people to sort of share their unused food like in their local neighborhood, and then they can, that kind of like social app where it feels like it's kind of, people need to get it out of their system. It's kind of one that they're naturally drawn to when they kind of enter that maker creator space, especially those that haven't sort of previously built a business before. And that when I'm saying that, I'm kind of seeing those sort of memes that it's like the first time founder and the second time founder. And I think no code attracts, which makes sense, a lot of those first time founders, which naturally kind of has that connection to maybe some of those ideas that are harder, more mainstream. And then after that first one, they hopefully find something that's a bit easier, let's say.
Yeah.
And how do you make money with this all? Like, you've been doing it for 4 years. How do you keep the
Yeah, good question. Yeah. It's to be frank, it's tough. So we're a bootstrap business. And yeah, when it was starting, it definitely didn't make much money at all. Your free program, right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a fact. And we're not a non-profit. So it's like, where's the money coming from? So basically we started as a community, and that was just a membership. So people paid £10 a month as they were going through the 100 days, and they got access to kind of, as mentioned, peer groups, live sessions, all those kind of things traditionally associated with a membership community. And then as we kind of started moving towards more educational content, we now make money from live boot camps. So as you guys will be familiar with, they're good for cash flow. They're very simple. It's direct, high ticket kind of price for a high value experience. So we run boot camps 4 times a year. And then which is kind of cash flow, which helps us do what gets us excited, which is our 100-day programs. Where, as mentioned, we can have the impact we want to have rather than sort of hitting, let's say, 100-person limit on a boot camp and not really being able to scale that experience, or struggling to. So on terms of revenue there, we partner, as mentioned, with some organizations, pull in different problem briefs, whatever, that we can then insert into the curriculum. You essentially pay us to get in front of lots of sort of new talent that are kind of learning these skills. And then at some point they will, be able to offer them jobs or kind of connect with them later on once they've finished the 100 days. So that's one thing. And then as well, some tools as well. So we partner with some tools who we really want to teach anyway. And they'll just say, hey, can we be on day 10? Great. There's a couple going on there, but it's definitely not making lots of money. And let's just say that.
Bootstraps are hard.
Yeah. We appreciate you for going on that journey. I know it's a hard journey. And it's like one of those ones where it's like the community appreciates it so much, the community would be lost without it. And so it's like, you don't want to ever stop it. But if you're not making a lot of money too, it's also hard. So you feel this obligation, but it's like, you also need to like do what you need for your own personal goals. So I feel the weight that you might feel of just like, I have this obligation that I'm helping so many people. I don't want to let them down. But at the same time, how do like I make money from this, or how do I achieve my long-term goals as well?
Exactly.
Finding that alignment is sometimes really tough.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, my friends are often asking like, you're paying yourself, right? And so, yeah, sure. But they're always just kind of checking like, yeah, it's just, yeah, what's going on here? But yeah, it is definitely a balancing act for sure.
Yeah. As we wrap to finish up here, what do you think is in the future for 100 Days School? Where do you see this going? Is it still just going to stay no code AI? Do you see expanding? Any updates for the community? What do you think the future looks like for you guys?
Yeah. So it's an interesting time, I think, with AI. It's interesting around that question of um, information, or the value of information is kind of going down with AI. So how do you share information and be that kind of course creator and educator, which is essentially sharing information in some way, shape, or form, and trying to transform people from it or with it? How do you exist in that space with this trend of AI as well? And how do you continue to add value, but in this case, rare value that will kind of have a longevity to it? So we are will be diversifying. So with, the 100 tracks or the 100-day tracks, that's something that works. We know it works, and we will probably be, I don't know when, I have no clue, but probably will be unveiling some new tracks related to other technical skills. So that's one thing. And yeah, we'll kind of just be continuing to improve our current programs, because there's so much opportunity to make them 10 times better. I think I tweeted today as well that, like, I look at my programs, I look at 100-day tracks and think, oh, like, there's so much to improve, which is a good thing because there's lots of opportunity. Yeah, just improving the learning experience and adding new programs. I think.
I got a little something to say or admit that I just graduated from the 100 Days of AI program.
Oh,
The
there we
whole
Oh,
go.
nice. Wow.
I wasn't
Stamp
public
of
about it.
approval.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Damn.
I didn't stick with everyone, but I read just about every email and like learned through it. It's really impressive work what you've done there. It's a lot of work also what you've done there put together. It's a great journey for those that are looking to a first time of just like, hey, what is no code? Hey, what is AI? You make it gradual and easy, and it's a good transition, and you build up to it, and you learn so many different tools. Even if you're not doing the daily exercise, you learn how a tool could be used for that purpose. And so then if like it comes back to you in life of like, hey, I need to do something like this, it's like, oh, Max was just saying this tool does that. There we go. Now I'll dive into that lesson. So there's tremendous value in it. And thank you for taking the time to put that together and working on it for the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's not like that. Yeah, it's definitely a high effort thing, but hopefully it helps people. And yeah, it's super cool to hear you say that. So yeah, appreciate it.
No
It
problem.
definitely helps people. We've heard a ton of people talk about it on the
Good.
pod and off. Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's like,
good.
how did they get started? 100 days. How did they get started? 100 days.
Amazing.
And so it's a really special thing. For our users or our listeners that might want to get involved themselves, where can they find more information?
Yeah, thank you. So we're the best way to find us is 100school.com. That is just the number 100 and then school.com. So that's where we're transitioning the brand. It's a little bit placeholder at the moment, but yeah, scrappy and lean. So hopefully it's a little bit shinier soon, but that's where you can find us.
Perfect.
That's great.
Max, thank you so much for taking the time. If you ever have anything you share or anything like that, let us know. We'd love to bring you back. And thank you for all that you're doing for our industry.
Yeah, and you too. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been super fun. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
It was great having Max on the show. We've been trying to get him for a while. He's a busy
About
man.
100 days,
Max.
if I had to guess how long it took.
100 days it took us to get him on the show, but we're glad we finally did. He's helped so many of us and so many people in this industry learn new skills.
25,000 plus. That's crazy. That's a
It's really
huge
good.
number.
It's really
That sounds that I expect that to double every year. That's going
I
to be
have
great.
taught 1,000 people no code, and he has 25 times that. So thanks for putting me to shame, Max.
Mhm.
But we appreciate all that you do. Thanks again for tuning into This Week in No Code. If you haven't left us a review yet, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you listen to us. Please leave us a review. It will help a lot. If you want to sponsor our show or come on as a guest, reach out to us. Otherwise, we hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you next week in No Code.
See you next week in No Code, everyone.
Sorry, I took that from you.
That's all right.
All right,
Harrison.